what it took for him to get into Sherman's mind. And he said there was a nested set of spheres that he had to go through. And he had to find a channel to the center to get to the message to Sherman, which was not easy. That's why they call it channeling. Because, and I didn't go into this last time, but what really appears to be happening here is everybody knows about the system of chakras, the esoteric system of chakras. The chakras are actually different levels of your soul and different levels of where your thought processes and consciousness processes are happening. So as you go through these Kundalini meditations, the idea is that you're supposed to raise the Kundalini serpent. I was shown in multiple readings that the actual process of raising that Kundalini is collapsing the chakras together into this set of nested spheres. Because when you do that, you focus everything into the one spot in your brain that we're going to go to here. So this is bringing all your chakras together and then finding that channel so that the entity that's trying to reach you or your higher self can get to the center. Because the center is where all the action happens. Why is that? Well, the center of your brain has a small gland in it called the pineal gland, which as you can see here, it was called pineal because it's shaped like a pine cone. This is the exact geometric center of your brain. It's right here. And this, as we're going to see, is very important in ancient cultures. The Sumerians gave it a description, which you can see here, the little acorns on the top of the staff that he had. And there's also a little jobber up here. And what we found out from Dan Burish is that these can be reversed. The cylinder seals can be flipped over. And when you start doing that, you see some very interesting things, like the eye in the triangle, and another eye in the triangle right here. So the Sumerians were hiding information. They were encrypting information in these seals. So this is the one we were just looking at. Here's your little pineal gland, and the other one up there. Well, look at this. Now, if you've seen Stargate SG-1, the first episodes, you remember the Goa'uld, the villains in Stargate? You remember how they had these helmets that went around their head that looked like a snake? That's the helmet. That's the Anunnaki. They were human-like people, but they wore these weird helmets in order to appear like gods to the primitive Sumerians they came to. And this is how they encoded the secret of what they really looked like inside this image right here. It only works when you put a mirror image on it. But then you also see he's holding all these pineal gland staffs, and he's got this seal over his head, and more symbols here. But it gets a lot more direct as we go on. And you're going to start wondering to yourself, why in the world are all these cultures focusing on the pine cone? This is Osiris, the lord of the underworld in Egyptian mythology. This is his staff, which as we now know, this is the raising Kundalini, the serpent, but it also represents DNA. And there on the top, as the Kundalini rises, what are they looking at? They're looking at the pine cone. That's the junction point where all this energy comes together. Now, King Tut has this Kundalini serpent actually going through his head. That's a symbol that they gave, that the pineal is fully activated, that your chakras have now all turned into that nested set of spheres, and that access from the higher realms is moving directly through your head. And they believed he had that. Whether he did or not, we don't know. Here's the Babylonian god Tammuz, and as you can see, he's holding a pine cone. So once again, he's a very powerful god from that tradition, and you're seeing the same type of symbolism coming through. Then you go over into Hinduism, the goddess Shiva, the goddess of destruction, the breaking down of the old to purify the way for the new. What does her head look like? What does that hair look like? It's another pineal gland. And you've also got the redundancy with the symbol of the third eye, and you've got the serpent wrapped around her head. The same iconography once again. And it's so powerful in the Hindu tradition that even now, it's common practice to wear a symbol of the third eye on your forehead if you're a woman, and they all have these. This is, as we go more into more recent gods, the god of drunkenness and revelry, Bacchus. You can see he has the goat-shaped ears here. They're kind of demonic almost looking. And he also has the cloven feet. But then look at this. What's that? There it is again, huh? There's that pine cone. So once again, why do you think alcohol, hard liquor is called spirits? Think about that for a minute. Because it opens the door to these influences. And the ancient people knew that. That's why they were called spirits. You've ever seen people who get like completely possessed when they're drunk and they just seem different, they seem a lot more negative? Well, negative entities in some cases seem to be able to grab hold through the pineal gland. And so they knew about all this. They knew that drunkenness and revelry opened up the pineal. That's why he's got it on the top of his staff. Dionysus, who is the usher through the underworld, the usher through death and rebirth, he's also got the pineal gland, the pine cone on his staff. So there's the same message yet again. And here's another image of Dionysus with a bigger pine cone. Well, let's not leave out Buddhism. Check that out, right? Same exact thing once again, the hair. That's another symbol of the pineal gland. And even the fact that it looks like a pine cone with these little, the way that they braided their hair. I mean, all this was done deliberately to honor the pine cone. So then there's a quote from the Bible, the light of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye be single, your whole body shall be full of light. That's Matthew 6:22. Well, that's pretty weird, huh? Guess how the mainstream Bible scholars interpret this passage I told you yesterday for those who were here. They say, well, you just have to be single-mindedly focused on God the Father as your salvation. That's why it's one eye. You just want to kind of look at him. This is a single eye, and it makes your whole body full of light. Well, the Bible says God is light, so this is what's going on. It's your hyperdimensional gateway.
Third eye.
The third eye, yeah. But surely we say, you know, even though maybe a Bible passage could be interpreted a certain way, it might not mean anything, probably doesn't mean anything. Surely the Vatican wouldn't follow something like this. That'd be silly. There's never any public acknowledgement of it, or do they? Well, check this out. This is the Vatican Square, and this is a gigantic statue of a pine cone. It's the largest statue in the Vatican, anywhere outside except for this little ball over here, which we're going to look at closer in just a second. Notice the peacocks, which have a very kind of Egyptian feeling to them, like the ibis, right? The Egyptian ibis. It's a very similar type of bird. And what's this all about? What's that look like to you?
Sarcophagus.
Aha! That's an open sarcophagus, just like in the King's Chamber or the Great Pyramid. What does the open sarcophagus symbolize in the Great Pyramid?
Initiation.
No more death. The transition into spiritual life. Okay? So, this all has to do with, I'm going to start walking a little bit. This all has to do with the knowledge of the higher forces, the sacred geometry. All this stuff focuses on the pineal gland, the pine cone. Now, what do they call this actual part of the Vatican? They call it the Court of the Pine Cone. Okay? How weird is that? But I want to take a look at that little ball, so let's go in closer on it. There it is. That's huge. That's huge. And what's all this? This is like Greek columns, and then you get your saints on the top of the columns here. And here you have, I guess that's called the basilica over there. But you've got this gigantic ball, much bigger than anything else, and it's mirror polished. Well, that again is a symbol of divinity and the Creator. Okay? Well, there's the pine cone, and here's a guy. Look at that. I mean, a man is not even tall enough to reach the bottom of the pedestal of this pine cone. What the heck is the point? If everything that I'm telling you is bullshit and you go home and are like, oh my God, this guy has been smoking some really weird stuff. Okay, fine. If you want to believe that, that's fine, but answer me this. What the hell is that? And why is it there? And why do they care? And why is it in every single ancient culture in the world? It says the same exact thing, and it looks just like a gland. Any of them could have chopped open a head and found this gland in your brain. And they did. Well, this is what's at the bottom of that statue, okay? That's Egyptian cuneiform down there. And the lion, like the Sphinx. This is the Vatican. Is anybody getting a does not compute on this? You got the ibises around the top of the thing, okay? You got this weird mirror ball on the outside of the courtyard. You got this open sarcophagus, like in the Great Pyramid. Do you think maybe that they have a little bit more of an affinity with Egypt than we've been giving them credit for? Do you think that maybe the ancient Templars who designed the cathedrals used the same sacred geometry in the Great Pyramid in order to make those cathedrals so that they would function as consciousness resonators and amplifiers, using the domed ceiling, using the stained glass windows that have sacred geometry mandalas in them, using the Gregorian chant, which has the tones of sacred music that then activate your consciousness. This is what's going on. That's the other side. You can see once again the same thing. You have this this lion who's there. Well, okay, I guess if we put a cross on the top, it doesn't really count as an obelisk anymore. You know, we can kind of glide on that one. Doesn't work for me. This is very much something out of Egypt. And here's the smoking gun. The actual pontiff himself carries a staff that has a pine cone in the staff.